You're listening to the Heart of Giving podcast with Art Taylor, powered by bbbgive.org. Here we explore the motivations that form the basis of giving and service. We inspire generosity and celebrate the transformative effects that giving and service have on the human spirit and on community. The conversations featured on the podcast also uncover giving strategies that educate and provide tools to help listeners make impactful gifts of both their time and money. We hope you enjoy this episode.
This is the Heart of Giving podcast, powered by bbbgive.org. Give.org is the nation's standards-based charity evaluator, and it's your one-stop source for information on giving and reports on the most asked about charities. I'm Art Taylor. We've done a number of shows since the war broke out in Ukraine to sort of give our listeners an idea of what the situation is on the ground and how they can be helpful. And today, we're going to do the first show of the year focused on the situation in Ukraine. And my guest is the head of Hope for Ukraine, is Yuryi Boyechko, who is the executive director of that organization. And he's going to talk with us today about the situation there, about his life and his interaction with that situation on the ground, and how we can actually be helpful. So Yuryi, thank you for joining us and welcome to the Heart of Giving podcast.
Thanks for having me, Art. Thank you.
Yuryi, let's get started with the situation there. What are you seeing today, and how is it different than perhaps when the war broke out?
So I'll give you a breaking news, right? So this morning there was a massive attack on the downtown area of the city of Lviv. This is where actually our hub for Hope for Ukraine is based in Ukraine. So as a result, multiple residential buildings has been destroyed. By latest numbers, I think there was about 7 people killed and about a dozen injured. Yesterday, there was a massive attack on Poltava region. In that particular attack, I think there was 50 plus casualties and 200 something injured. And in between, day before, there was an attack on Kryvyi Rih. So these 3 days, giving you a snapshot of what's going on the ground. So right now, we're going into third year of war in Ukraine. So just understand our enemy is much greater than us, and they have completely retooled the economy to fund this war on democracy, war on the West. And what we see, it's basically genocide of Ukrainian civilians, because Russians don't fight fairly on the battleground, but they use their long missiles to strike civilian targets, to create havoc and create internal, fear, and just to bring confusion into this society. So that's what's going on. And as this war drags on, for us as a charity that's been working on the ground since 2016, we see a big and bigger number of people are falling into poverty. Ukraine is, before the war and a while back, it was being considered the breadbasket of Europe. Now, because the agriculture has been disrupted, right? A lot of fields that farmers were able to plant and use to grow crops, now they're full of mines. So these entire regions are unusable for farming. So we see internally, we have about, based on the last numbers from World Bank, we have about 30% of Ukrainians that are in the country that are falling behind poverty lines, right? And then, we still have about 3.7 million internally displaced folks that live in the country that have no particular way to move forward because they have nowhere to go back. And outside of that, we still have about almost 7 million people who are refugees in other countries. So if you look all around, it's what we're dealing in Ukraine is the biggest humanitarian crisis since World War II in Europe. And it's not getting better, it's getting worse, because the longer this drags on, more people are being killed, more homeless families, because each strike that happens, outside of casualties, there's also a bunch of families that have no more home to go back to. So that's what we're dealing. So basically for us and for me personally, these last 2+ years, it's been 24/7 work, because there's also, I feel like a firefighter sometimes. We have to put out these fires because you never know. Like every night, we get this alerts that, okay, missiles hit there, missiles hit there. So then we as an organization have to respond, where do we send aid first, which region which partner we contact first. So the situation on the ground is not good, and in my opinion, it's even worse than it was in 2022. And the reason why is because at that time, the attention of the world was on Ukraine, and I think there was more. But now, as this drags on, there's people get tired of it, and politics get mixed into all this. But in the end of the day, this is, in my opinion, this is the war that will define how the world operates for next century. Because if we're gonna it's not only, Putin is not only interested in Ukraine per se. Ukraine represents West to him, but once he takes on Ukraine, he'll move on to other European countries. And then what will cause is that United States will have to step in somehow, to stop this. So Ukraine is not only Ukraine, it's more a global issue where, what we saw in World War II, where fascists rose up and tried to destroy the world. Now we see this new fascist, which is Putin and his gang, trying to do the same.
Well, let me ask you about your organization and how you are helping those who are affected. Now, I've talked to a number of people who are doing work there, but many are doing work in the region, not necessarily inside of Ukraine. Are you actually able to deliver the kind of aid that people need inside of Ukraine as well? And how many people do you feel are actually affected right now?
Yeah, so we are very much boots on the ground type of organization. And we have built strong alliances with over 100 different nonprofits, NGOs, groups all across Ukraine. So we have our base, the way we operate, we have our base in Lviv, Ukraine, but we have contacts with our partners all across Ukraine. So basically on a daily basis, we have about 2 to 3 vans of volunteering groups come. We load up them with the humanitarian aid, and they go and bring to the frontline towns. So our main program is the feeding program. So we supply emergency food kits to about 1,500 families each week, all across Ukraine. Mostly we focus on Kherson region, Kharkiv region, Donetsk region, Kryvyi Rih region, Sumy region, the areas that close to the front line. So basically, we work directly on the ground, and the way our network is built is, they come, they load up with food kits that we supply them, then they go back, they distribute, and they report back to us on a daily basis. We're in the process of actually building an app that's going to help us streamline the process. It's going to be like a food delivery app where the people who need aid would apply for assistance, and then we would connect them with the local partners, and they would distribute the aid that we give it to them. So that's what we do. Actually, right now, as we speak, we have a mobile baking unit that's baking bread in Sumer region. We partner with a French master baker. He brought his whole baking operations, mobile operations, and they actually baking bread 5 kilometers from Russian border, feeding civilians who live in there. So, and then we are very report-oriented organization. Me as a CEO, my main goal was to start this is I wanted to feel comfortable to make donation to my own organization because I want to know where the money goes. So what we do is through our social medias, through our website, we have a daily update. So you can go to our social media, to our website. We have twice a day, every day, 7 days a week, 24/7 updates of what actually going on the ground. You can see our teams working every day. Here we're unloading the containers. Here we feed people. Here we provide educational assistance. So to give our donors and our supporters inside look to know exactly what's going on, and we're much involved in Ukraine. Our main focus is food. Second is education for children. Third, we run internally displaced center in Lviv, Ukraine, where we take in families from frontline towns. We place them there. They stay there until we find them permanent home to stay.
So help me appreciate the scope of what you're doing. So how many people are you actually able to feed, for instance, in a particular month?
So basically, our food kits, we distribute about 1,500 food kits a week. So one food kit can feed a family of 4 up to 7 to 10 days. We provide over 90 million meals. If you want to break down by meals, It's hard to do this math on all these because it's big numbers. But that's basically our main. So we do part of our feeding program is we do the food kits, and also we run food kitchens, like mobile food kitchens where we cook, bake, and then we give away. Because you got to understand that certain parts of Ukraine, when you're talking about Kherson region, like we're working in this village called Novopavlivka. The folks there didn't have a light for like 2 years. So for them, even to make a hot meal, right, you have to, you either got to create a fire outside or like do something else, But the problem with doing fire outside and cooking on open fire is the smoke can draw the drones, Russian drones. So that's not very. So basically, we're trying to go into these places, right, and with the mobile units and cook the hot meals for them. And I like from this trip that we're just doing now with baking bread. I never seen such happiness on someone's face when they get 2 loaves of bread made with Ukrainian ingredients, baked by French master baker. I mean, like the thing is, like we don't understand that, but like, and I don't understand that, right? Because we live in the United States.
Yeah.
But for people who live in such poverty and such stress all day after day, for them to have someone come out there and just give them a fresh bread, it just gives them the different level of hope that they understand, okay, we're not forgotten here. So that's basically what we're all about. And we feel, our food program is centered around this little saying that we always use, that hope begins with a meal. In the end of the day, if people have something to eat, clothes, I mean, you can survive somehow without clothes, but if you don't have something to eat, you completely lose hope. So that's what we working on. And also another big initiative is to providing after school programs for children of war, because in Ukraine a lot of children, first of all, the educational system is destroyed, but because a lot of the kids, even if they go to school, Like, for example, in Kharkiv region, the entire school system is underground, is in a metro station. So they completely took out the metro station in Kharkiv region. So the kids have to study underground. And in other places, they either go remotely, or they don't go to school at all. And if they go to school, usually they are staying with their mothers, and after they come home from school, they have nothing to do. So that's why we have started arts and crafts program in Kirovohrad region, and it's Kryvyi region. So we do these weekly classes for them where they come in and we use arts to help them deal with stuff that is depression and mental issues that are caused by war.
Yeah. Well, I'd like to just talk about you for a little bit, if you don't mind. Help me understand how you got involved and we can imagine what prompted you to get the organization started, but it had to be something more than seeing the need that told you could actually make a difference. What was that?
Yeah, so I grew up in Ukraine. I grew up under communism. I'm one of 6 children. My father was a minister in Ukraine, and he actually, when I was 6 years old, he was put to prison by communists for 2 years for being a preacher, because at that time you could not practice religion in Ukraine. So basically, those times, I remember still, back in the days when you go to the stores under communism, and there's only one type of bread, one type of milk. You have to line up like 6 o'clock in the morning to get something bought, because if everybody buys bread, you have nothing left to eat. And the bread, they used to bring bread only twice a week to the store. So I remember those days, right? And when I was 16, I came here to the United States to study, finished my master's in film. I got involved in the media, industry. And my heart was always for Ukraine. After independence, Ukraine has still been dealing with a lot of problems. We're talking about corruption, we're talking about poverty, we're talking about, Ukraine before the war had one of the highest HIV rates in Europe. So then in 2016, I decided, I want to do something more, right? I want to do something more for Ukraine. And that's how Hope for Ukraine started, right? So we started from our initial projects were centered around providing additional medical support for HIV-infected children in Ukraine. And also a big focus was also medical support projects, because of the poverty and a lot of lack of medical access to medical treatments, we have a lot of kids in Ukraine who have treatable conditions, right? But because the parents don't have money to pay for the surgeries, for treatments, they cannot deal with that. So we would take these kids and we would bring them and get those kids treated. So that's how we started. And my goal was always to use Hope for Ukraine as a vehicle to bring hope to the most desperate communities in Ukraine, and to just my perfect pictures to get rid of poverty. That's my goal. I wish that, and it's not only for Ukraine, but all around the world. I hate to see kids struggling, families struggling. So that's my passion.
So behind the scenes, what were some of the key players and moments that helped you get the organization off the ground?
So it was me and my brother, right? And then we start building a network. I think the key to our success was building a huge network of volunteers on the ground in Ukraine, because when you start, you don't have money. It's not
So how were you able to do that? That's really fascinating.
So basically I still have, so after I left Ukraine, I still kept a lot of connections there, right? So we would go back, twice a year, to different work there, even before the Hope for Ukraine started, right? Just on our own. And then we start building a network, in different towns, we would start reaching out to community groups, to different religious groups, and they would get behind our causes, right? There, because they, for example, like HIV treatment program, there was actually existing group that was doing that, and then we said, you know what, we want to get behind you, So what we would do is we would use local resources to help, be our hands and feet on the ground, and then then we would, share the message here, and whoever give what, then we would help that way. And then over time, that's when the war started, full-scale war, because we look at the war in Ukraine, it's actually started in 2014 when they took Crimea and parts of Donbass. So even at that time, when we started 2016, we already seen a first wave of refugees and internally displaced people from the Donbass region. So basically, since 2016 until 2022, we were able to build a contacts and network all across Ukraine, right? The people who are passionate about, because you cannot pay everyone. So you need to have a good network of volunteers in order to do something great. And that's why that's how we operate, and that's how we've been able to grow and sustain our work on the ground.
So as I think about something you said, which is early part of the war, there was a lot of attention directed to what was going on, and Americans were pretty generous, I would think, in the beginning. But then with the war not being on everyone's mind, how are we responding to the requests for support that you're sending out now? What's the experience that you're getting from Americans in terms of its support of your work?
I mean, Americans has been great, like outpouring of support, especially that first year, was outstanding. But, I was just doing an interview with one outlet recently, and just to give an idea, right, in 2022, if you're looking at March, April, May, June, we would fill the container. So we had a collection center here in New Jersey that community people can bring donations, right? Clothing, food, stuff like that. And then we would pack into the containers, ship it to Ukraine, right? Mm-hmm. So back then, we could collect a full container, sea container, and send to Ukraine in a matter of a week. So at that time, we would send about 4 containers a month of humanitarian aid. Right now, in 2024, we sent in our 4th container. So, but to collect that 4th container for us, we need to hunt for donations all around the United States. It's no more just, local community. So like we have to go to Florida, somebody donates t-shirts in Florida. So you got to get them here. Somebody gets 2 pallets of something in Chicago. So that's basically, so right now, the support has decreased, and I understand, because it's just, I didn't expect for the active phase of war to last so long. I was thinking in 2023, we were going to be talking about rebuilding already, right?
Yeah.
So if I was, so I cannot expect regular Americans to be engaged in this for so long. So that's why for us as a Ukraine-based and focused organization, we just need to work extra hard now in order to maintain the fundraising at the levels we need in order to keep our work going in Ukraine. So it's not easy. It's not easy, especially when we get a lot of politics mixed in there, and then it's just because 2022 there was no politics. Now there's a lot of politics, and that's causing a lot of trouble. Yeah.
Are you able to deploy your talent and skill in media to help raise the attention that's needed to this issue at all?
Yeah, we're doing what we can. We using our social media platforms as much as we can. We using, online ads, everything we can. And the thing is, in social media, we had, it's we would
Yes.
get tons of attacks by the bots. So you got two sides. You have
Right.
the Russians would hire a
Right.
bunch of bots, and then we would. So it's a back and forth. But I use my talent and our team whatever we can, and every opportunity we get, we just trying to put forth the message that war is not over,
Yeah.
and in the end of the day, it's not. This is not political issue; it's a human issue,
Yeah.
and it's.
What do you need right now? What do you need?
I mean, we definitely need food because the hardest thing to get donated, right, is non-perishable food. So we can get clothes donated, we can get, but food is a hot commodity because everybody needs to eat. So so basically, most of our food that we provide, we have to either purchase or it gets donated. So we've been like today we actually purchasing the whole truck of instant noodles from Poland, and that's gonna go inside of our food kits. And also we work with local producers in Ukraine to produce, but that's basically our main need is non-perishable food, because this is our biggest item in our budget, is the food
So if
program.
someone wanted to send you food, how would they go about that? I guess you have that stated on your website, but just tell us here.
Yeah, so they can just, we actually did the program through Amazon, right, where people would buy like a non-perishable food, canned food, and they would mail it to our office at 101 Eisenhower Parkway, Suite 300 in Roseland, New Jersey. And then we would put it in the containers and send it to Ukraine. And then we would use the items the folks would donate to give away to people, yeah.
And how are you able to ship it to Ukraine?
So we ship it here from New Jersey through our logistics partners. So it goes from here to Poland or Germany, and then we get a truck there that brings it to our warehouse in Lviv. And from there, it gets unloaded, gets unpacked, and then our partners come with the smaller vans and they take it to the frontline towns. But that's the process.
Are there any partners here that you want to give credit to?
So, I mean, we've been, M25M has been Matthew 25 ministry out of Ohio. They've been helping us a lot with supplies and stuff like that. And also Procter & Gamble, and they've been donating a lot of hygiene products to our work in Ukraine. And that's huge, because food you can grow, toothpaste you cannot grow. So that's been a huge blessing to us, and just our main source of help and funding is local individuals. Also the company out of Kentucky, Pink Lily, they donated like 3 trucks of brand new clothes that we gave away to people in Ukraine in 2022. So just generosity of small donors and large companies. That's what, in my book, and that's what I always tell to all of our team, there's no such thing as a small donation. We treat a $10 donation the same way as you would treat a $100,000 donation. So we're just grateful to everyone.
This has obviously thrown your life into some change as well. But how do you feel every morning when you wake up knowing that this is a mission that you've signed up for and that you have to now find a way to fulfill?
I mean, my wife tells me sometimes that I'm married to the phone. And that's because the thing is, like, we are here 7 hours ahead of Ukraine. So usually when I wake up like 6:30 in the morning, my inbox is already filled with issues I need to take care of, right? So, and this is 7 days a week, because the war is nonstop, and in war there is no game plan, right? It's not like for example, when was that? 2 years ago, 2022, in the winter, right? We had this big plan to do holiday gifts for kids in Ukraine, and then the Russians start hitting the electrical grid, so it was a blackout. So we had to divert, our focus from gifts into supply and generators. So that's how it is every day. For example, like today, I woke up and we have a situation in Lviv, Ukraine, that we have to deal. We have a bunch of families that have no home no more because of the missile attack, right? Yesterday we had our team in Sumy, right? So it's basically like there is, for me, it's been these 3 years nonstop everyday work, and I don't know when it's gonna stop. And I cannot really, person cannot go on vacation because even if, as long as I have internet, there's always there's always issues to resolve. Yeah.
Well, clearly there's something special about you that you would take this on for such a long period of time. And I'm also curious about what's going on with your friends and people who are working in your organization. It's not necessarily the safest situation for them to be trying to distribute goods and aid and food in a war-torn area. I want to just ask, what's happened to some of them? Have you lost some colleagues as a result?
Yeah, I mean, we had a number of tragic situations, where we had one time our volunteering van was bringing aid and it was hit by the drone. So we had two of our partners injured in that. I had a bunch of people I know, they got who were drafted into the military. Some of them got killed, some of them got injured. But you got to understand one thing about Ukrainians, because and that's the question I ask all our volunteering partners in Ukraine: why are you doing what you're doing? Because some of them had full-time jobs before the war, now they're full-time volunteers. So basically what they make, we pay for their gas, we give them, food, but as far as like income, they basically surviving on what they can.
Yeah.
And one person told me, I asked him, why are you doing what you do? And he said, you know why? Because my biggest fear and my biggest fear of my family is to wake up one day and to hear a knock on our door and open the door and there's Russian soldiers standing outside of our door. And that's why I'm doing what I'm doing. I gave up all my life as a professional, what I did in my previous life, and I completely committed to victory here. And I'm not gonna stop until. That's why, I think that's why Ukraine's still standing. I mean, they're standing for two reasons. Standing because of our American partners and our Western partners and good people of the world, and also the human spirit of the Ukrainian nation. Because you got the army, but you have 30 million civilians who are mobilized to support that army. That's why we still can stand, and that's everything we do is a big props goes out to those volunteers on the ground, because they risk their life. Some of them go in the areas, you go it's a one-way ticket. You don't know if you're gonna come back. But in the end of the day, if you have like that village of Nova Pavlika, right? I mean, you have like, about 80 families who still live there. And that these type of places, the infrastructure has been destroyed, right? There's not like supermarket you can go buy stuff. So these people have to eat. These people need toothpaste. These people need soap. So that's why we do what we do, because we cannot surrender and we cannot give up. We have to win this fight, and that's the reason.
Well, Yuryi, I can't thank you enough for what you're doing for the people of Ukraine and also for us too. Because when I think about the efforts that you are putting forward to help them, you're kind of standing in for us too. Those of us here in the United States who are watching from afar with a lot of concern and anguish about what the people in Ukraine are experiencing as a result of this war. And so what you're doing kind of helps us too to feel a little bit more hope that people who are in desperate need, as they are there, are going to be getting some support, and that maybe one day this will come to an end and your country and your countrymen and women will still be standing. So I want to thank you for giving us the opportunity really to support the work that you're doing to give us hope. And thank you for joining the show.
Thank you so much, Art. Thank you for everything you guys do.
Well, you've been listening to Yuryi Boyechko, who is the executive director of Hope for Ukraine. And you've heard the amazing work that he's doing there to help people in need. And I want to encourage all of you in America who have a certain spot in your heart for what's going on with the people there to consider making a gift to support this organization. It is a BBB Wise Giving Alliance accredited charity, and you can feel safe that your donations are going to be put to good use. And as you heard, Yuryi, he is expecting not only money, you can give food as well, if that's your choice, and they will make sure that it is distributed where it needs to go. Now, if you're listening to the show for the first time, this is a weekly podcast. We're now doing it both in audio and video. You can hear it in audio on all major podcast platforms. And on video, we are posting these to YouTube and to the BBB Wise Giving Alliance's website at give.org. So we hope you will subscribe to our YouTube channel and to the audio versions on your favorite podcast platform. And we'll see you back here again next week. Thank you for listening.
You've just listened to the Heart of Giving podcast with Art Taylor. Be sure to tune in next time for a brand new episode. To listen to our other interviews, visit heartgiving.podbean.com. That's heartgiving.podbean.com. Subscribe to our show on major podcast platforms. The thoughts and opinions expressed on this podcast are the views and opinions of the guests, not those of the BBB Wise Giving Alliance or program affiliates. This podcast is for information and educational purposes only and is copyrighted with all rights reserved. This podcast is protected by Podbean's terms of service.